Welcome to today's masterclass, where we are going to be talking about the 5 things that are quietly destroying, killing your marriage. My name is Kimberly Beam Holmes. I'm the CEO of Marriage Helper, and I am ironically excited to be sharing these things with you. You might hear that and think, how in the world can you be excited to share with us about something that feels so heavy and so hopeless? But that is why I'm excited, because I truly believe the more that you can understand, it doesn't mean that things are going to change. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but the more that you can understand about what is going wrong, it gives you the awareness for you to begin to do things differently in order to make it right. That's what we're going to talk about today. Use the chat. We're going to be interacting in it through it. I'm going to be asking you questions. I want to hear from you. And I would love to know where people are even joining us from. Marriage Helper has such a reach across the world and across America. And I always love seeing where people are from. So just see in the chat as we go. Would love to see. Hopefully people can hear me, because I think it's a bit of a lag. But we also have some of our Marriage Helper team that are in the chat as well, who will be helping to man it. Awesome. So without any further ado, let's start diving into, oh, there's a lag. So now I see. We're just gonna keep going. I think there's a bit of a lag. Now people are starting to comment where they're coming from, but we have Arizona, Illinois, Texas. I'm joining you from Nashville, Tennessee. And I know people will continue to do that. Norway, love it. From the UK, I'm going to be headed that way tomorrow. Love to see the reach that we have. Okay, let's get started on the 5 things that quietly kill your marriage. I want to start with a story about a girl. When I first met her, she looked me in the eyes and she said, "I would rather die than stay married to him," and pointed at her husband. And honestly, y'all, it didn't take me long to figure out why. She had gotten married young. She was madly in love with her knight in shining armor when she got married. And the man that she had looked at longingly since she was a little girl, thinking that there was no way that he would ever notice her. He was older, strong, successful, and one day he finally did notice her. And finally, she felt seen. Then they married, and life set in. And soon she realized that in his mind, she had a role to play, to take care of the house, the kids, to take care of his needs inside and outside of the bedroom. But that's honestly where her values stopped. Her husband ended up trading family dinners for 120-hour work weeks, and he was always gone. Gone to the office, gone to meetings, gone to chase the next promotion, only popping home long enough for dinner and later for sex. She felt like he chose work over family all the time, not just in the first year, but for 18 years. She never felt like she could speak up against it because he would always just convince her that she was wrong and that things should really just be done his way. After all, he knew best. He was the man of the house. And after being shut down every time you try to share your feelings for 18 years, finally, you just stop talking. And that's exactly what she did until one night she found a man at a bar who finally listened to her. And she hated herself for it, but she finally felt seen again. Only this time, it was by a man who wasn't her husband. Now, you've heard all of the usual suspects when it comes to why marriages end, because of money, because of infidelity, because of irreconcilable differences. But what if the real reason that marriages end is something much more subtle? Something that you don't always see coming? What if it's something that doesn't happen overnight? Because it doesn't. Most times it happens over a period of years. Let me show you what I mean. So my husband, Rob, and we got engaged the day before my 21st birthday. And as my dad likes to say, I gave up my freedom before I ever even had it. But we were in love. And we knew that we wanted to get married. And so 2 weeks after my husband and I got engaged, he got orders to go to South Korea. Orders, you might be thinking, from who? Not me. It was from the government. He was in the military and we were on our way there. Did I just lose the audio? Are we good? Okay, awesome. He was in the military and he had just graduated flight school. And let's just say that Korea, which was the place that he got stationed to, was literally the last place on our list of where we wanted to be stationed. No, really, there was a list and Korea was the last place on it. And when we got to Korea, Holly was the first friend that I made. Holly and her husband had been struggling with fertility issues for their whole marriage, which at that point had been for about 5 years. She would try different medicines. She would do all of the things, the injections, the procedures, timing the intercourse, all the things that they knew how to do, month after month. And month after month, they would wait for that white stick and wait for the blue line. And they kept having their heart break every month that it didn't. And she took it out on her husband. One evening, she and her husband, along with me and Rob, went to the pool on the military base. And Holly realized at one point that her husband was with my husband in the hot tub. And instead of going over to him and having a private conversation, she yelled out across the pool for all to hear, "Ryan, you know you have low sperm count. Get out of that hot tub." Can you imagine? How do you think he felt? This man was a soldier. He was fighting for our freedom. And his wife just said something incredibly emasculating to him for everyone to hear. Maybe some of you know how this feels. And that wasn't all that she did. The apartment that they lived in didn't have a dishwasher. And so she told him, since you picked this apartment without me, it's your fault. And therefore, you are going to have to do the dishes by yourself every single night. So he would come home from work, still in his fatigues, and he would spend his time laboring over a pile of dishes. He had no voice. She would run over him, tell him what to do, tell him what not to do, and he would just nod and smile. He didn't know how to stand up to her, and when he tried to stand up to her, she shot him down. Their first night that they were finally back in the United States, in the middle of the night, her husband silently got out of bed, gathered his passport, his wallet, and a few of his things. He turned off his phone. He changed his number, he deleted his Facebook, and then he left. When she woke up, he was gone. No traces of him left. What happened? In both of these marriages, one had a controlling wife, one had a controlling husband. One had all the money that they could think to have. The other struggled to make ends meet. One marriage struggled with infertility. The others had multiple children. One marriage was impacted by an affair, and the other one wasn't. But both marriages ended. Why? Why did these marriages go from being madly in love to hating each other? And even more so, how can you make sure that this never happens to you? You see, up until now, research has shown that the reason that people divorce are because they feel like you don't like me, you don't love me, or you don't respect me. But at Marriage Helper, we have found that it's even simpler than this. And if anything works, this will. We've worked with over 30,000 couples since 2012 and have been doing this, helping couples, helping marriages since 1999. And we've had over a 70% success rate at saving the marriages that have been in the most hopeless of circumstances. We have still seen those marriages saved. And we've even been able to help over 10,000 people in the past 10 years go through our proprietary Save My Marriage course, which has been developed for people who were wanting to save their marriage, even when they had a spouse that wanted out. I mean, even when People were still experiencing divorce papers being served to them. They were separated from their spouse. There was a current affair going on. The most hopeless of situations. And as you'll see later, that course has been a game changer for so many people. But as we gear up to this, what are the things that were the quiet killers of the two stories I shared earlier? These are the quiet killers of relationships. It's not the affair. As much as many of you want to think it's the affair, it's not the affair. It's not the big things that led to where you are now. The reason that your marriage is likely in crisis right now is not because of the thing you think it is. It's the things that simmer long over time. With the two stories from the beginning, one of the marriages was saved. They both ended in divorce. But one of those marriages was eventually saved, remarried, stronger than ever. And one still stayed divorced. And one key thing made the difference. And I'll be sharing that with you later. But first, I want to break down the quiet killers that were the factors before the affair, the factors before the big blow-up fights, all of these things that were the long simmers that led eventually to an explosion. They aren't always dramatic. In fact, they're deceptively ordinary. And the fact that we have actually become accustomed to, inoculated to, how often these show up in our marriages is terrifying. Because over time, these things choke the love out of a marriage. The first one is this: living separate lives. Now, you might be thinking, we live in the same house, or we have up until now. How could living a separate lives from each other be the quiet killer of the relationship? You can live in the same house, share the same bed, have the same lifestyle, even the same schedule as your spouse, and still live two different lives. You can live the life where both of you are chasing two different careers, or one person is working while the other person is staying home and taking care of the kids. And when you sit around that dinner table at night, you actually begin thinking that you don't sit around a dinner table. And you realize that you've been eating dinner in front of the television, or you've been eating dinner when you can. Your husband, your wife has been eating dinner when they can. You don't eat dinner together. You wake up at different times. You go to bed at different times. Maybe you sit there and begin thinking, when was the last time I saw my spouse? Yeah, you see them in passing. But when was the last time you actually spent dedicated quality time, lived a life in sync and in schedule with your husband or with your wife? Put it in the comments. I would love to know. I know that when my marriage was at its worst was when my husband was getting up at 5 a.m. because he had to go and work out with his branch at the military, with his unit. So he'd wake up at 5 a.m. and he would be gone for the rest of the day. I would wake up around 8. I would go about doing my things. He would come home. I would be gone with friends. We typically wouldn't eat dinner together. He would go to bed early because he got up at 5. I would go to bed super late. We didn't have a rhythm. We were living separate lives, and we didn't even have kids. I mean, bless us when the kids come involved, and then you have the soccer games and the ballet and all of the different things that you are separately taking them to, and you aren't spending time together anymore. Living separate lives. Focusing too much on what keeps you apart, work, kids, hobbies, without intentional quantity and quality time together. This is so key. Our hobbies can even be things that also keep us living separate lives. How many times do we hear the common joke, the common thing that people say of like, oh, the women are always getting angry at their husband for going golfing or going hunting or doing their hobbies, whatever it might be. Or men are always nagging their wives about how they go shopping or go and do whatever it is they do, right? The hobbies that women tend to have. But the reason that those are comments and jokes that people make all of the time is because we are constantly continuing to do things that separate us from our spouse. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have hobbies. I'm not saying you shouldn't have jobs and things that you do separately from each other. It's when these things become your life and you forget to come back together and stay married and to be married and to have that rhythm of what it means to have not just quality time together, but quantity time together. That is the key here, not just continuing to do the things that separate you. This is a quiet killer. We justify it. We think, well, it's my hobby. It's how I reset. We don't really need to eat dinner as a family. Things are busy. It's fine. But when this happens for weeks, months, and years at a time, it destroys marriages. The second quiet killer is the loss of physical intimacy. Not just sex, but consistent connection, touch, affection, presence. Think back to when the last time was that you had physical intimacy with your spouse. Was it a priority? Did you make it a priority? And it isn't true that it's only the men who want to have physical intimacy and the women who only want emotional intimacy. Both genders want both. But what happens when we have these separate lives, we're so busy, we're just doing all of the things, is that either intimacy stops happening or intimacy becomes a chore. It becomes something that we just check off of our box when physical intimacy is the gift, one of the gifts of marriage. It's one of the things that makes a strong marriage. We know from the research that's been done here at Marriage Helper that sexual satisfaction is correlated to marital satisfaction. And it doesn't necessarily mean that one goes down first and then the other one follows. It means that it's correlated together. So if marital satisfaction starts to go down first, sexual satisfaction will eventually follow. But if sexual satisfaction goes down first, it means marital satisfaction will eventually follow. I was texting with one of our clients a couple of days ago talking about how it had been years since they had had sex with their spouse. Years. Of course, this is going to be a quiet killer of relationships. And if there is either the husband or the wife who is struggling with desire or anything like that, it is so important to get that seen about because of this reason. When you stop having sex, you stop connecting in a way that husbands and wives need to connect. This is a quiet killer of marriages. The third is unhealed wounds. Childhood trauma, past betrayals, or recent losses that stir up insecurities that you never intended to bring into your marriage. Unhealed wounds. There's something called the ACEs test, ACES. It stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And what this ACEs test has been proven reliably over decades, the past several decades, is that I believe there's about 9 or 10 statements on it. And if you answer that you have experienced even just one of these things in childhood, but even more so the more that you have experienced, it is absolutely an indicator of future divorce, future marital or relationship problems, future heart disease, other diseases inside of our body because these things are traumas. Some of them are clear traumas, like someone experiencing rape, someone experiencing sexual molestation and different things like that. Of course, that would be an adverse childhood experience. Neglect from a parent being in jail, or being abusive towards a child. But there's also some very interesting ones that show up on the ACEs, which is divorce. If a child experiences the divorce of their parents, that is a childhood trauma. I know from my master's degree and the research that I did for my thesis in my master's degree that when a child experiences their parents' divorce, that they are much more likely to divorce themselves. They're much more likely to experience a lot of negative effects. Many of you had parents who divorced. Just the other day, we had one of our team members who posted a picture inside of our team channel of this beautiful little boy, and he had written a letter to his parents. His parents are in the middle of fighting, separating, going through a divorce, and this little boy wrote, "I'm so sorry. I know this is my fault." It's not his fault. We know as adults hearing that and reading that, our heart breaks because we know this isn't his fault. He is the innocent victim and bystander of what is happening between his parents. But he doesn't know that. He believes that this is his fault because he's a child. And these are the two people in his life that are supposed to protect him, who are supposed to show him how to love. And when that foundation begins to crack, a child doesn't know how to react to that. That's why this is a traumatic experience. And for many of you, you experienced that. For many of you, your spouses experienced that. And we can begin to see why something like that, not even to mention other traumas that I mentioned, how we bring those wounds into our marriage. In the workshops that we do at Marriage Helper, it never fails that we see people who come in and in their processing of the material and the information, so much about their childhood comes up that they need to forgive, that they need to process. We do that as well inside of the Save My Marriage course. There's a whole session on how to forgive in the past what needs to be forgiven, because you will keep staying stuck in resentment, in anger, and in making the same mistakes if you don't forgive, if you don't heal some of those wounds. Those things need to be brought to light, and I have to say it. If you think that your child is not going to be affected by your marriage ending, you're wrong. They will. They will. And the more we try and push that down and try and justify our decision to end the marriage or to do what makes us happy, we can justify all day long, but the victims are the children. And so if for nothing else, decide to try and save your marriage for your kids, because they deserve it. And you will find along the way that you can rebuild a marriage that is completely different than the marriage that you had before, but not if you keep just allowing these unhealed wounds to fester. They can't heal unless you deal with them. And these things will absolutely hurt your marriage over time. The fourth quiet killer of marriages is not listening. Sounds simple, right? Like clearly, if we don't listen to our spouse, it's not a good idea. Talking over your spouse, dismissing them, or worse, putting them down, especially in front of others, is something, honestly, y'all, I see all the time. When I go just out with friends, out with people that I've met at church, out with people that I've met in business settings, my husband and I go out to dinner with them and their spouse, we see this more often than we would even like to admit. It's the gentle jabs. It's putting the other person down, making jokes at their expense, having your spouse be the brunt of jokes. Even it can just be little things, but what it does is it shows disrespect. It shows contempt, maybe that you believe that you are better than your spouse. And these things have become, honestly, socially acceptable. It has become socially acceptable to use your spouse as the brunt of your joke. Even when I listen to comedians sometimes and they're talking about their spouse and people are all laughing because it's funny, like, oh, my spouse, such a ball and chain. I don't even know how to do anything. Brian Regan had Had a great one years ago where there's like the man caught up in the blinds and it's like this ad and the woman's up front and she's like, my husband is so stupid. And people are laughing, but women do talk about their husbands like that sometimes. I remember back when we were in the military and military wives would get together, sometimes that was the worst get together I could go to, even though we weren't in front of our husbands. Hearing how some of the wives talked about how stupid their husbands were, how they couldn't believe some of the decisions they made, how gross their husbands were, whatever it was disrespectful. And they didn't, and not even them. I'm talking about people now. Like I hear people do that about their spouse in front of their spouse. This is a huge issue. And it is one of the bigger quiet killers because of what it conveys. It conveys, I believe I'm better than you. That destroys relationships. The fifth quiet killer of relationships is control disguised as love. Control disguised as love. Trying to shape your spouse into who you want them to be rather than loving who they are. We have a process at Marriage Helper called the Love Path, and it is the 4 steps of how people fall in love. It starts with attraction, then it goes to acceptance, attachment, and aspiration. And each one of those just goes super deep into everything we teach about it and all there is to understand and how it applies to your relationship. But here's what you all need to know. Acceptance means that you can accept and love your spouse as they are without trying to change them. It means that if your spouse doesn't dress the way you want them to, oh, God forbid, your spouse doesn't vote the way that you want them to, your spouse doesn't have the same political beliefs as you do. These are touchy subjects right now. That you can accept them and not try and fight with them and not try and change them and not try and say, how stupid could you be for believing that or for thinking that? Because what does that do? It pushes away. It pushes your spouse away and it destroys love. And you may be thinking, but what if I don't agree with what they believe? You have the right to not agree with what your spouse believes. That might sound crazy. Your spouse is not a carbon copy image of you. And your goal in life is not to try and make your spouse be a carbon copy image of you. Your goal is to love them unconditionally, regardless of what they believe, what they say, even what they do. And you might be sitting there thinking, but my spouse is terrible. They're having an affair right now. They're being so mean to me. I'm not saying you have to agree with what they do. I'm saying you have to accept without trying to change them, because you can't change someone else. The only person you can change is you. And there's this crazy thing that happens when we begin to let go and stop trying to control so much and try and change and try and make things exactly the way we want them to be. And for all of the fellow control freaks out there, you might be having a panic attack right now just hearing these words. But here's the thing. When we actually begin to let go and we are able to love our spouse as they are, as we begin to change ourselves, and as we begin to love the other person as they are right now before they change anything, the craziest thing happens. They begin to change. This is actually psychological. They begin to change. When you begin to love yourself as you are, you begin to change. And when you begin to love your spouse as they are, they begin to change. Control disguised as love kills your marriage. Other factors that didn't make the top 5 of the quiet killers, but I believe are honorable mentions, are things like addictions like alcoholism or porn that numb pain but create distance. These break relationships apart. Emotional affairs that start innocently but grow in secrecy is another quiet killer. People who believe, we're just friends. There's nothing that you need to see here. Everything's fine. But the longer and longer and longer it goes, the more they feel like they can't live without the person. And it also creates distance. It begins to erode that foundation of love. And then resentments that never get addressed and turn into contempt are more things that continue to lead to these quiet killers that can destroy marriages. So before we go further, I would love to know, so far, which one of these has given you your biggest aha moment? And what was it? Which one did you hear and you thought, man, I'm struggling with that? Or I have struggled with that? Or that's something that I need to really dial in on? And here's the thing, and I'd love for you to put it in the chat. But here's the aha moment that I hope you have, or that I have, even as I was going through this, was that at Marriage Helper, these things create distance. These quiet killers create distance, and most people don't get help for these things until it's been happening for a while. And it gets to the point where your spouse, likely why you are here, doesn't want to work on the marriage because these quiet killers have impacted you, and they have impacted what you have experienced. They have impacted your marriage to where now your spouse may want out. Maybe some of you feel that way. Well, here's the thing. Marriage Helper 10 years ago wasn't even able to help people who had an unwilling spouse because we only did couples workshops. But now we have a proven framework to help with this head on for people like you who are saying, I want to still fight for my marriage. I do still want to save my marriage, but I can't get my spouse to agree to do anything with me. There is hope for you. And I'm going to tell you more about it in just a minute, because every quiet killer boils down to one dynamic. And it's what we at Marriage Helper call push and pull. When you attempt to control your spouse or to make them do anything, things get worse. They just do. However, you can influence whether your spouse moves away from you or towards you based on what you do. It's called push-pull. When another person attempts to get us to do what they want through force or through manipulation, we either refuse to do it because no one wants to be manipulated or controlled, or we do it and resent that we did. Right? How many of you have felt that way? Maybe some of you have been the ones doing this. Maybe you are coming to the realization of, man, I have been controlling. Or maybe you're sitting there and thinking, I am the one who has been controlled. Control is way more rampant in marriages than any of us want to realize or want to think about. I would say it's probably the number one issue we actually see in the marriages that we work with. So think of it simply like this. When a person does things that evoke positive emotions within us, it's a pull. When a person does things that evoke negative emotions within us, it's a push. And it's not your intent that defines whether something is a push. It's the other person's perception. So here's some simple but powerful advice. Reduce your pushes and increase your pulls. When you're controlling, criticizing, or neglecting, you're pushing, and you end up pushing love away. But when you show respect, empathy, and attraction, you pull, and that pulls love back in. But you can't build love on the things that you stop doing. You build love by the things that you stop doing, but you have to do both. There's the things you have to stop doing, and there's the things you have to start doing. And here's the thing. You want the answers right now, right here on this masterclass. And I've been giving you information and helping you understand what are some of the things you've been doing, but it doesn't just work like that. If your marriage could be saved from one 45-minute class, then listen, that would be amazing. But here's the thing. You learned, and many of you have shared, you learned an aha moment today. Man, I haven't been listening, which has led to a lack of intimacy. And in turn, now we're living separate lives. Another person saying, I can see how alcoholism and things like that have led to this. I can see how control has led to this. I don't want a divorce. I want to save my marriage. And another person who even said, I feel like I've had an aha moment on each topic that we've talked about so far. And I'm glad. You need those aha moments for the things that you're learning. But what are you now going to do? What are you going to do? Now you know something logically, but you actually have to do something, and you actually have to do something different than what you've always done. And that's hard. Like, it's really hard to get someone to start eating right. It's really hard to get someone to exercise. And even the use of those words there, like get someone, I am getting my PhD literally in motivation and it's in psychology, but I have been studying motivation. I've been studying goals, self-esteem, body esteem, how all of those things affect us personally, how it affects our relationships. And here's one thing I know for certain is that you can put a bunch of external rewards out there. Like if you run this 5K, you can win $100. That's called extrinsic motivation. You're doing it because you don't want to. You just want the $100. You want the reward. And that works, but it never works long term, ever. Then there's intrinsic motivation. And this is on the other spectrum. And this is the gold standard of motivation, because intrinsic motivation is something that comes completely from within you. You're doing it because you want to do it. You don't have to be persuaded. You don't have to be talked into it. You are so in it, like you want it more than anything, that you will do everything within you to do it. And no one has to tell you to do it. Habits, changing your habits, changing your behaviors, I can't make you do it. But for your marriage to be saved, you're going to have to do it. And you are going to have to find a place deep within you for you to want to do it, because you want to do it. And here's the thing. Most people, most of you aren't going to do it. You're not, because most people don't. Most people accept, well, my husband said he wants out. I guess I'll just find a lawyer. You are so far from your marriage being anywhere close to over. But if you're going to give up that quickly, I can't help you. We can't help you. At Marriage Helper, we are looking for people who are committed, who have the intrinsic motivation and say, I'll do whatever. I will do whatever. I will not just learn whatever, but I will implement whatever. Like, I am at the end of my rope and I'm ready because I want to save my marriage. I can't create that within you. You have to have that within you. And I can absolutely help you get your marriage saved if you have that desire within you. But most of you don't. Now you know something. But you actually have to do something different. And change takes consistency over time. It takes information and implementation for transformation to occur. Not just information. I know some of you, y'all go to church. You go to church every Sunday. You sit in that chair and you still haven't forgiven that person who really hurt you 20 years ago. I know, because that was me until a couple of years ago. Every Sunday, I would sit there and I would hear the word, I would get the information, but transformation didn't take place because I had yet to implement one of the most important things to do. It is information plus implementation that leads to transformation, and it takes following a guided process that is proven and is tested, and it works. Not just sprinting to get to the end. Like, I know so many people who buy courses or buy books and they just like watch every video on 2x speed because they're like, okay, I'm just going to get all the information and I'm going to get to the end of it. And no change has happened in their life. Because just because you hear something means nothing. We're in an age and in an era where we just want more information, and we think the more information we have, the better it'll be. And we're dumber than ever. So it's not the information. It is understanding how to implement it, how to use it, and how to, with wisdom and discernment, actually apply it. You don't have an information problem. You have an implementation problem. That's why you don't know what to do. And you're listening to too many voices, too many people giving too many different ideas, and you don't know who to trust. You need to find who you're going to trust. And I hope that that's me. The beginning, I told you 2 stories. I told you the story of the woman who said, I'd rather die than be married to him. He was controlling. He was working all of the time. He only used her for sex. And she eventually fell in love with another man. And they divorced. And then I told you the story of the couple struggling with fertility and her deep-seated control of him. And every time he tried to stand up to her, she would just yell at him and back him into the corner until finally he literally changed everything but his name and left, never to be seen or heard from by her again. And they divorced. Both of these marriages ended in divorce. One of them, though, ended up being saved. One of them tried to sprint. They tried to do it themselves. They tried to fix it all by themselves. She tried to fix it by herself, and she just continued to do all the wrong things because she thought she knew better, and she didn't. The other understood the value of the marriage and the need to invest time, energy, and money into doing the right things the right way. And the marriage ultimately ended up being saved. And that's why we created the Save My Marriage course. We have had this at Marriage Helper for 10 years, the Save My Marriage course, but I have to tell you a story about it and why it came to be. Because I remember what it was like. I remember it was right before Christmas, December of 2013, when my husband and I had just gone on this trip to New Orleans with the company he was in at the time. And while we were there, it was honestly terrible. It was truly terrible. Like, our marriage had already been rocky. It had been rocky for many of you who know my story pretty much from week 1. We didn't start our marriage with a honeymoon even. Like, I was sick on the wedding day. I had the flu. I threw up that morning. I threw up that night. The first thing right when we got back to our hotel room. Like, this was the start of our marriage. My husband had to take a final check ride for the military a couple of days later. And so we went straight from that to moving halfway across the world where none of us knew anyone. There was high stress. We had no idea what we were doing. We were young. I was 21. He was 23. And honestly, I felt like I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I don't know now if I hated him, but then I felt like I did. And I didn't know what to do or who to turn to. And we ended up going on this trip, and things had been bad for a while, but we went on this trip and it was just like the explosion, that everything was terrible. And right when we got back, I calmly packed my bags and I said, I love you, but we can't be like this. We can't continue to live like this with the toxicity and the fighting and all of the things. And he had some unhealed wounds that I honestly didn't know about at this time and that he hadn't dealt with, that were leading to a lot of what was happening. And I had issues too, y'all. Like, I controlled. I was the controller of, like, you need to change. You need to be different. And these two things together just like oil and water. It was not good. And so I packed those bags. I said, I love you and I want to make this work, but not like this. And I walked out the door and I got into my car. And I sat there for about an hour, really waiting for him to come after me. And he didn't. And I left. And I remember feeling so embarrassed and so ashamed. I remember calling my parents. I remember I really didn't call many other people. It was mostly only my parents and one other family friend, and just thinking, how could this happen to me? I was in the middle of getting my degree in marriage and family therapy. How could this happen to me? Where do I go? Who do I turn to? He doesn't want to work on this, and he doesn't see that there's a problem. What am I supposed to do? And so about a week later, I heard from him. He sent me a text that he was going to buy a new car. We didn't have the money for a new car. I wanted to just respond and be like, are you an idiot? Like, we don't have the money for a new car. But I just responded and said, okay. Because what was the fight going to do? Nothing. And then I just waited. And a couple of days later, he called. He apologized for a lot of things. He opened up. He became vulnerable. I heard him. I listened to him. We came back together and we began working on things in a healthier way, in a better way. It was hard. It took time. But now, on my way to work this morning, I thought how one of the best parts of my day yesterday was how I went home last night and I said, Rob, I just want to tell you all about my day. And we just sat on the back porch. And for an hour, I just talked to him and he gave me his thoughts and prayed over me. And he's my best friend. And on the way to work this morning, I thought, I'm so grateful for him. And he rarely sits in front of this camera and he loves being behind the scenes. But y'all have to know I am who I am today because of him. And in 2013, I wanted out. He wanted out. And we have a beautiful marriage today and beautiful children. Is it perfect? No. It never will be. But we fight for it every day, and it's beautiful. And so when we got through that, I just remember that feeling of, where do I go when I want to save my marriage, but my husband doesn't? And that's why we created this Save My Marriage course, because I wanted what I didn't have, and I created what I didn't have so that you could have it. And so we got down, we got out, and me and my dad, and we walked through, okay, what does someone need to know when they want to save their marriage, but their spouse doesn't? How can we take them through a process? How can we not just teach them things, but how can we also get them to think about things, to make plans, to actually begin to see behavioral change in their own life? And y'all, that's where the Save My Marriage course started 10 years ago this year. We've redone it several times since then, always making it better, always keeping it up to date. And it's honestly one of my favorite things that we've ever done. And not just because it was honestly birthed out of my own desire and need for what I needed and didn't have, but because for 10 years we have seen this change thousands of lives. I would love to show you how it's changed some lives.
I can only say I wish I had discovered this months earlier, because in it I realized how many mistakes I was making in trying to win back my wife and my children.
I learned so much about myself and about my marriage. I wish that I would have discovered it earlier.
Learning that you cannot control anything. You can only change yourself. You can only control yourself. So if you change yourself, you can influence others.
You learned a lot about yourself, you learned patience, and you learned how to communicate your feelings.
My favorite part of the course was the peace and hope that came as I went through it. Something that I didn't even get while I was going through therapy.
I feel like it has truly changed me as a person, a spouse, a mother.
Really taught me a lot about myself.
Marriage Helper has saved me from a lot of anxiety, from a lot of impatient behavior.
Really made you dig within inside yourself and think about all the things that you do that you're not thinking about.
I thought I had all the answers to my marriage and why it's not been working.
It does help with communication skills, not only with my spouse, but also through my career and my children.
I really enjoyed the 10-week course. I liked that everything was broken down into so many steps and that the workbook helped keep you on track. I learned so much.
It wasn't about playing games. All the other resources sort of wanted you to play hard to get or go out and find other people to make your partner jealous.
My favorite parts are the videos and with the information. That is golden. It has helped me to become a better person and with the hope of getting back together.
The course itself, again, is based on statistics, knowledge, tried and true methods. They don't lie to you. They are sincere and care about the marriage, your marriage.
The Marriage Helper course has been phenomenal. And I have to tell you that it has helped me both personally as well as in my marriage.
At the end of the day, he chose not to even show me the divorce papers. He took them with him and he chose to continue talking. So for the first time in a long time, I face the future of our marriage with hope.
I'm hoping for a reconciliation and praying for reconciliation. However, if for some reason, if it doesn't work out by the grace of God, at least I've bettered myself.
If anything works, this will.
So today we are opening up the Save My Marriage course, and we haven't done this for a while, but it is the time. And the time is now. And I believe that the time is now because so many people are needing this specific guidance. And so we are opening the doors to join the Save My Marriage course from now until Wednesday. And here's what this course is going to do for you. It's going to help you understand how to stop being controlling and to better understand what destroys love, how people fall in love, and how you can get your spouse to fall back in love with you. How to stop doing the things that predict divorce with 94% accuracy. The 4 things that you have to be doing day in and day out in order for you to get calm and to look and feel your best. It gives you a plan, an action plan to follow of what to do and to stop doing to move toward your goal of saving your marriage. And it even answers some of the burning questions that you have, like how to handle things with, like, what do I say with my kids? When do I need a lawyer? And does that mean I'm giving up? How do I know if it's time to move on? We tackle all of those questions as well inside the course. And there's a couple more things. You're also going to get the Smart Contact Toolkit, which is typically $149 value included. You're also going to get 3 ebooks inside of it just for you, not available anywhere else. There's a marriage scripts, so what to say to your spouse based on different circumstances that you might be encountering. We're calling it our Marriage Crisis Scripts ebook. We have a no nag communication tracker for you to begin to understand how you are doing things wrong and how you can stop being a nagger or nagging to your spouse. And then, y'all, this one's crazy. 10 text messages that you should send that show that you're using Smart Contact. We've always said there's never going to be a text message that's going to give the perfect words that's going to bring your spouse back, and that is true. But I have decided to do an ebook of, okay, I am going to start telling some of you how to word your text messages because you're doing it wrong. So we're giving you examples, guidance, text templates in your text messages of what to say based on some of the things that your spouse may be saying to you. All of those are included. But best of all, there's no risk because 100% of what you pay for the Save My Marriage course can be credited to a future Marriage Helper workshop. You're going to get that money back. So if you're trying to choose, do I do this? Do I do a workshop? Do both, because 100% of what you pay for this course is just a future deposit, so to say, or a deposit for a future Marriage Helper workshop. We're going to apply all of that money back. So there's no risk. We are taking that away. The doors close for this on Wednesday, September 24th. You can see the link. We're going to be posting it in the chat, or you can go to marriagehelper.com/ SMM10. Just SMM and the number 10 in order for you to go and get the Save My Marriage course. Join it now. You'll get instant and immediate access to all of that. And if you join before tomorrow night at midnight, I'm also including 3 other brand new, only for you, literally only the people who buy this before midnight tomorrow night are going to get the next 3 things I'm talking about. The daily crisis response checklist. So this is every day you're in the middle of a crisis. What are the things you need to do to stay calm and stay grounded? All of that every day. A 7-day guided action plan for you to use. It can be your journal for 7 days, and it takes you through some of the key principles, gets you thinking about things, gets you writing down how you're processing things, what wins you've had, and then you're also going to get the Stop the Pushes daily checklist. All of that only for people, like not available anywhere else, who purchase and join the Save My Marriage course before tomorrow night. Now, I'd love to take your questions, but here's the thing you need to know. Marriages don't end overnight. It takes years based on the choices we make day in and day out. So the question is, what choice are you going to make? And I believe that by joining the Save My Marriage course, it will give you the guidance, the understanding, and the implementation of what you need to do in order to save your marriage. You saw the testimonials from people who have gone through the course and the difference that it's made in their life. And that difference can be made in your life as well. So we would love to have you inside of the course. To the people there's some comments that I see coming in and people who are saying, I'm going to a workshop this weekend. You all actually, in one of your portals inside of your Marriage Helper membership, you have access to this Save My Marriage course that we can direct you to. So you can email customer support. They can tell you how to get that. So don't worry about that if you are concerned about how to get the course. But for people who get this, they will have lifetime access to it. There's limited access to it when you're going to the workshop. You only get the access to the course for a limited amount of time, or as long as you're in the membership. But when you get this Save My Marriage course, it is lifetime access. So it's a one-time payment, lifetime access. You get to keep it for months, for years, one-time payment, which is a huge benefit. I know a lot of great information in it that people like to go back to and use time and time again, even just for a refresher, which is an amazing part of having lifetime access. But again, you can, yes, okay, awesome. Glad that I answered your questions. So again, marriagehelper.com/SMM10. We would love to have you inside of the course and would love to be able to help you move forward on your path to save your marriage. Are there any other questions that have come in throughout the time that I didn't see that I can go back and answer at this point? And feel free to type your questions in the chat now as well. We have a couple of minutes for questions and answers as we go back through. And since I've been talking an hour straight, I'm going to take a couple more sips of this now cold tea. And we love Nina's comment. I found Marriage Helper almost 3 years ago, and it was a catalyst for saving my marriage. Praise God. Thank you for sharing that, Nina. I think at the very beginning, there were a couple of questions. I mean, I saw some general questions throughout about like, what do I do when my spouse isn't wanting to get involved? And that's what this course is for. When your spouse isn't interested, isn't willing, isn't wanting to work on the marriage, this is where you get to decide what you're going to do. Are you going to do something different? Are you going to continue to fight for your marriage, to learn what you need to do? Because here's the thing. One spouse can begin doing the things to save the marriage. It does eventually take 2 people to reconcile, but it only takes one person for change to start happening. and that person is you. A question that just came in: what if a spouse wants to keep contact with the emotional affair party? How do I handle this? We cover questions like this in way more in depth inside the Save My Marriage course, but I mean, overall, it depends on where you are in your marriage as to how to answer that question. If you're still in, if you're still trying to, if your spouse is still reluctant and doesn't want to save the marriage right now, then of course they're not going to want to end contact with the affair partner. You still need to keep doing the things you're doing. There will eventually come a point where, yes, clearly they're going to have to break off that communication in order for your marriage to thrive, in order to truly reconcile. But if you're not yet at the point of reconciliation, then that's not even a consideration right now. There's 7 steps that we work through at Marriage Helper. Step 1 is to calm down. This is for you. You have to calm down in order to be able to handle your situation at all. So step 1 is calm down. Step 2 is to get clarity on the real issue, on how long this is going to take, on what it's going to take and require of you. Getting clarity is step number 2. Step number 3 is stopping your pushes and starting your pulls. All of this can happen before your spouse is ever involved, before we're even thinking about reconciliation. Step 3 is to forgive and reconcile. So it's kind of, this one we kind of split it in half. There's a 3 and then a 3.5. Everything up until after forgive, you can do by yourself. Reconciliation is the second part of step 3. Forgive first. You have to do that regardless of the outcome and what happens next. But reconciliation is then a decision that the two of you make together after you have gotten calm, had clarity, stopped your pushes, started your pulls, and forgiven. Okay? Then reconciliation, then building trust back, then reigniting passion and intimacy, and then creating your dream life together. So it depends where you are in that process together as to how you handle the emotional affair party question. Another question that came in: how are the weeks divided? I mean, do you get access to a lesson at a time? Is it all available at once or only after the lesson? It's all available at once, so you don't have to wait for anything. However, my challenge to you is to not speed through it. Take your time. Now, if you want to go through the whole thing at once so that you can get an understanding and then go back through it slowly, then I think that's great. But please don't speed through it, because there's things you're going to have to do. There's a workbook that comes with it that you're going to either have on your computer or that you're going to print out, whichever you prefer. And we're going to have homework for you and things for you to write out and think about and plans to make. So all of that is important for you to truly understand. How do you get your spouse to start communicating again? Another question that just came in. You have to change some things first. Why did your spouse stop communicating with you? Maybe because when you communicated, you always fought. When you were controlling when you tried to communicate. There's a ton of things. The Smart Contact Toolkit, which you're going to get included when you buy the Save My Marriage course, will teach you how to change the way that you have talked to your spouse and how to, in the future, talk to your spouse so that you can change the way you communicate and get your spouse to start communicating back with you. When your spouse stops communicating with you, it is because there has been a history of it ending poorly. They don't like the way they feel when they talk to you, so they don't want to talk to you anymore. In Smart Contact Toolkit, we teach you how to change that, how to talk to your spouse in such a way that when they talk to you, they actually like talking to you again. And that then creates a new feedback loop. When they like talking to you, guess what? They're going to want to talk to you more. So this is what we teach you to do in the Smart Contact Toolkit. How do I communicate with someone who is always being negative towards you or always shifting the blame on you? Well, you don't have to accept that. You don't have to take that on. You still do your part. This is one of the parts of Smart Contact. We reply in a way that is graceful and kind, but that doesn't mean we have to accept blame for things that aren't true, and it doesn't mean that we have to take on things that are not ours to take on. So you do your part as a communicator, having grace, having strength, having kindness, being gentle in how you speak. But you also don't have to reply to something or continue engaging in a conversation that is not going well and that is being hurtful or damaging to you. Julian, we would always consider doing an in-person workshop in other countries. I love to travel, but nothing is on the books right now. If your spouse has been hanging around with her divorced friend who has greatly influenced her for the divorce, what can you do? You can keep doing the things that you know to do, the right things, the things that we teach you in the Save My Marriage course, the things we teach you in Smart Contact Toolkit. Those are decisions you make of how you're going to act and how you're going to be, regardless of what your wife is currently doing or who she's hanging around. The best thing you can do actually at this point is to continue to be the better. What do I mean by be the better? Live in such a way, act in such a way, live your life in such a way that it combats what her friends are trying to influence her to do. But have that come from a place of genuineness. That is the best thing that you can do. Or what can you do if your spouse is being influenced by her parents? Same thing. You continue to live a life that is above repute, that is doing the right things because it's the right thing to do. That's the best thing you can do consistently over time. Yes. Do you have payment plans or a one-off payment? Great question. Right now, you're going to see that it's a one-off payment. If you are needing payment plans, then please just email us, info@marriagehelper.com, and we can do something to help out with that for sure. Would love to have you be a part. And one of the things we've always said at Marriage Helper is we never want finances to get in the way of someone being able to get the help that they need for their marriage, which is why we are putting 100% credit of what you pay towards this Save My Marriage course towards any future Marriage Helper workshop that you might attend, whether that's a solo or, of course, the coveted couples workshop that everyone wants to get to. 100% of what you pay for the course will help you. And guess what? The things you learn in the course, if anything works to help get your spouse to agree to come to the workshop with you, then these things will. If anything works, this will. I have so enjoyed being with y'all today. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you inside of the Save My Marriage course. And until next time, remember, there is always hope.